Welcome, everybody, to Limitless in Midlife. We are so happy to have you with us again today. I'm Sally Orkel Bowles, founder of Sovereign Soul Mastery and Retreats, where legacy meets luxury and leadership meets embodiment. And in this powerful conversation today, I have the beautiful honor of sitting down with international coach and speaker, Catherine Strata, who brings 50 plus years. We're not going to really talk about how old we are, but she has a lot of lived experience navigating anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, and breast cancer. But more than that, she brings real healing. So Catherine shares her story of rising from emotional turmoil into grounded peace, and why she believes that nervous system regulation, not just mindset work, is the missing key in healing anxiety. So today we've got a lot of different things that we're going to hear from Catherine about why coping isn't enough for anxiety, how understanding your human design, which I'm really curious on this part, changes the game, how rapid transformational therapy works at the root level, and gentle, immediately usable practices for the nervous system regulation. And also topping it up with why midlife is the perfect time to stop surviving and start sovereign thriving. So we've got a lot of golden insights that Catherine is going to share with us today. So welcome, Catherine, to
Thank you.
Limitless in Midlife. So I wanted to start off today really talking about your personal story.
Mhm.
So one of the things I wanted you to be able to share with our audience today is I know that you've lived through immense emotional and physical challenges. So can you take us back to what life was like before your healing began?
Yes, I can. And before my mood swing started, I was 12 when they started. So basically, I was still something of a child. And when they did start, my parents just thought it was adolescence. So no one really made anything of it, but they got worse. And what started happening was I was kind of either up or down. There was no middle for me. My parents used to say, why can't you just, you know, remain in? And I was like, I don't know,
Mm.
everything's either great or I'm depressed. And that went on for the next 12 years, which was quite difficult. Um, and in fact, I was quite bright and I wanted to be a doctor when I was young because I thought doctors heal people, and since obviously things are a bit different now because very often it's just symptom, looking at symptoms that they do and giving you tablets that you need more tablets to take side effects for. And so at that stage I did. So I actually got into medical school. But while I was there, just at the end of my third year, I had a very bad depressive phase and I was in hospital for 8 months.
Wow.
And they didn't know what to do. I just wasn't getting any better. But eventually I did start getting better. And then I managed to get out of hospital and I went back to medical school. And by this time I was kind of more in the high situation because I'd come through the low and was coming up again. And I had to pass the psychological test to get back into medical school. And I passed that with flying colours.
Wow. Good for you.
I will all systems go.
Correct.
So then I did another year at medical school when I was working on the wards in the mornings and then lectures in the afternoon, and I was doing exams and things. And then at the end of that year, I began to get depressed again. And basically, I I realized that it was not ever going to stop unless I did anything about it. So with great regret, and this was really difficult for me to give up medical school because I had worked so much to get there in the first place and then to get back again. So anyway, but the good thing was that I got to sit down with a consultant psychiatrist, and he motioned me into the room. He said, sit down. And he just smiled at me. And I, oh. And he said, I haven't read all of your notes, but I can see you've had a really hard time. And I just thought that was the first person who'd ever really listened, properly listened. You know, you feel when people really just get that. And he said, I think we ought to try lithium now, which was not something I really wanted to hear, but he talked about it. And to be honest, I was 25 by then. So the last 12 years of my life had been really not great.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really see where I was going. So I thought, well, why don't I give it a try? Just try it. So I did. And with lithium, you have to titrate the dose because you have to get your body used to it. So after 6 weeks of being on lithium, I was like, wow, this must be how normal people feel. Because it has this really strange thing. It's a bit Marmite, actually, lithium. You either really like it or you hate it. But it just held me and I felt safe. When I was up or down, I didn't feel actually safe in my body.
Yeah.
And I suddenly felt safe. And then, because I didn't have a degree or anything, I did a secretarial qualification. And I started working at different companies. And I got into a company that works with pharmaceutical companies to do clinical trials for them.
Oh,
And because I have a very research-orientated brain, I'm a 1-3 projector, which means I'm always looking for new things, learning things. This really suited me. And when I was stable on the lithium, I found that I could actually carry on life without the dips and whatever. So it was much easier to build a career. And I had a 25-year plus career in the pharmaceutical industry, learning to manage trials, going into project management, managing programs, doing presentations for groups of professors and doctors, presenting scientific information, which I really enjoyed.
beautiful.
So that went on. So fast forward until 2018, I had a blood test because you have to be monitored when you're on lithium. And the blood test showed that there was kidney damage,
Oh, no.
which is a side effect. So my family doctor, my GP, took me off the lithium. And what she did was she tailored it down like you're supposed to do. And it was just when I was coming into menopause. And there is a hormonal element to bipolar. And I was really convinced that I was going to be okay because mine had started when I was 12 and I thought, it's all right, I'm going to be okay. And I'd look forward actually to menopause because that was, my belief at that time. And anyway, she tailored it down, didn't give me anything instead. So I had my last dose on the 1st of March, 2018. And within 2 months, my weight had gone from 70 kilos to 53 kilos and I was suicidal. And it was a complete shock to me. I had to give up my work. I was working as a consultant for a pharmaceutical. I had to give that up because I was actually unable to function.
Wow.
And that was a real shock for me because it was so long since I had been well for so long. But having said that, my kind of adventure went on. My GP phoned a psychiatrist because the waiting lists in the UK were quite long, so she couldn't get me in to see anyone. And he suggested another drug, which is actually called lamotrigine, which is a drug they also give people with epilepsy, but at a different dose. Because a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs are given for different pharmaceutical mental illnesses. And there's a very interesting book called Brain Energy by Christopher Palmer, who's an MD, American doctor, who puts forward the proposal that actually mental illnesses are diseases of metabolism and that there's a problem with mitochondria underneath everything, which is quite interesting. And I read that, there's lots. But it was interesting. And again, I'm always trying to learn and to improve and all this. So I tried this drug, but it was really, really hard for me. I found that my fingers, I was losing the feeling in my fingers. And I was also through chewing the inside of my mouth when I ate. It was difficult for me to control my mouth movements. And we have a quarry tile kitchen floor because this is a very old house. And I was dropping things. I was starting to get a rash on my face. So I went back to the doctor. I said, I'm sorry, I can't do with this. I'm slightly less anxious, but I'm still depressed and I can't function on a day-to-day basis with this drug. So by that time, the things had moved on a bit, and I did get to see another consultant psychiatrist who again really helped me and saved the day. Because what happened when at the same time as I saw him, my mother was given a diagnosis of bowel cancer and she was given 6 months to live. So I was still depressed. We were looking at different medication. She was we were very close. I lived about an hour away from my parents. So he gave me a different drug, quetiapine, which is actually an antipsychotic, which again, I wasn't keen on, but it does help you sleep. And my experience of bipolar, different from some people's obviously, is that I don't sleep when I'm depressed. Can't get out of bed. I was like, I couldn't rest or anything. And this drug helped me because I had it all at night and it just calmed me down for the night. So that was helpful. So I started taking that. And in the meantime, my mother did what the doctors told her. She actually died 6 months after she got her diagnosis. And we had her at home. She never had to go into hospital. We had all the care package with her. We had her family doctor would come and see her. And there was, there was an end of life kit for her. So we were able to get the nurses in to give her morphine when she needed to and things. And on the 1st of December 2018, she died at home, which was quite traumatic, obviously. And I was still quite depressed. And basically, that was the December. And then in February 2019, I was diagnosed myself with breast cancer. And, all of these things were, a real journey. But having said that, again, I think this new consultant psychiatrist really has saved the day for me because he gave me a psychologist for a whole year. Normally in the UK, you get 10 sessions or something. He saw, because I had the cancer, I had still hadn't started grieving at that point, and I also was still depressed. I worked with this amazing psychologist. We had an hour a week together. She had a very, very positive mindset about different modalities. So, and she was a research conscious person. So we worked together to look at different ways of helping me in a holistic way, which was absolutely amazing for me. And she encouraged me. And by the end of the year, I'd had various operations. I'd had a mastectomy. I'd had various other bits taken out. And then I had a full reconstruction. And all that time, I was seeing her. And that really, really helped me. And by the end of the year, which was what I got allocated, I started thinking I could actually do something with this information that I have. Not everything has helped me, but I have this toolkit, basically, about how to regulate your nervous system, how to survive, but how to also thrive. And I had started getting my own joie de vivre better. I was starting to really get that enjoyment back, which had for a good 2 years, I was, in a bit of a state. So then I started thinking, well, why don't I start a coaching business? Because I had actually done a coaching qualification previously while I was working in the pharma industry because I was interested in coaching. So I decided to start up business myself, initially helping people with bipolar disorder. And last year I widened that, and now I help people with anxiety and depression standalone as well, because my experience of bipolar disorder has been very much, that of depression and that anxiety, that anxiety that kind of is insidious, that sort of hangs around, and many people who don't normally have anxiety can develop it in the menopause because of the hormone shift. So that's what I did. And now I coach people one-to-one, and I've just started group coaching with my Quit Anxiety Gain Peace course. um, where I add the different modalities. I help people learn to regulate their nervous system. And we go through a process, and it's a gentle process, but it helps people to build resilience.
That's awesome. And I think, for all of our listeners today, there's a lot of um, people out there that can resonate with the fact of the childhood right through, because there's so many parents right now that are struggling with what to do. And thank goodness for you advocating for yourself. And I'm sure your parents were as well along the path to try all these different modalities and to find all these different solutions. But has there been a dramatic change now in the acceptance of bipolar and as far as the medical organizations and being able to support people in a way that's really meaningful?
I think certainly here in the UK, there is still quite a stigma with bipolar disorder.
Mhm.
There's a famous American professor called Kay Redfield Jameson, who I think about 3 years ago, she was on a conference with Bipolar UK, which is one of the main organisations in the UK charities. And someone said to her, "Do you tell people you have bipolar?" And she sort of hesitated a bit and she said, "The thing about having bipolar is that the moment you tell someone, they look at you in a different way." And I found this because when I went back to the friends and everyone I'd had before I had the breakdown, because I didn't tell anyone before, I would never have got the jobs that I
Of
had I told
course.
people. So when I went back and told people who I'd worked with for quite a few years, some of them just didn't want to know me anymore. And I felt, I mean, it's a reality, it's something that is quite hurtful, but I'm still the
Absolutely.
same person, and I went through all of these things, and I still managed to hold down a decent length career.
Mhm.
But it's difficult. I mean, I think the way that certainly bipolar is characterized in the media. I don't know if you saw Homeland with Carrie Matheson.
Uh,
Um,
Somewhat.
well, yeah, I mean, she was a CIA agent and she was always going off her lithium and she was like, it looked like she was absolutely nuts. I mean, and it may, and I just thought, "Oh, people will think you're, running around doing mad things all the time." And there is some element of, obviously when in hypomania and mania, but it's very difficult, I think, to portray it in a way that is realistic, that people like myself and other people who have mania, I have hypomania rather than mania, but they're still both very difficult states to get through
Mhm.
because, you know, in mania, you actually really don't know what you're doing. So you've got a psychosis and you are, you know, really away from reality. Whereas with hypermania, you realize what's going on, but everything is heightened. It's a very nice place to be in, and a lot of people with bipolar actually take drugs to try and replicate that high. That's why there is a lot of substance abuse
Wow.
among
Yeah.
people with
Just
bipolar. Um, so yes, so I think it's a very difficult thing. People always ask me, and I say, well, if you're going for a job, I wouldn't, say it in the interview because while people are not supposed to differentiate,
exactly.
they will. If it's your company and you're thinking someone has bipolar and someone doesn't, even if they look as if they've done great jobs and things, you don't actually know what's going to happen. So I suggest to people that they don't say anything, and then when they get to work and when they're doing a good job or whatever, if they find that people they work with they think are going to be sympathetic, then they might tell them. Because people in the UK are certainly supposed to offer workplace accommodation
Mm.
for people, so that they're not put in situations which might
Mhm.
exacerbate the whole problem. Like, so they're not expected to entertain with alcohol and, right, because
Right.
that's a real no-no,
Yeah.
and things like that. But I have to say that here in the UK, the average time to diagnosis is 9.5 years, which is very shocking because there's a lot of damage you can do in that time. You can
Oh,
imagine.
absolutely.
Mm.
So now, just rethinking anxiety along the pathway,
Mm.
you say anxiety isn't just a mindset issue in your coaching that you're doing today, it's a nervous system issue. So, what do most people get wrong when trying to so called fix their anxiety?
People try to fix it with just symptomatic issues. But really, I teach people about their nervous system and I teach people how it works on quite a basic level. Because what happens is, when we were cavemen, we needed a nervous response. So if something was chasing us, we needed to run or fight or flight. So we needed that stimulus immediately in that response. And that is a hindbrain response, which is a very old response. Before we could talk, before we could start framing our feelings and really kind of when we were as animals with no consciousness. And then that was absolutely a positive thing for us. Now that we've got the cortex and we think about things, and what happens is we think ourselves into an issue with anxiety because that stimulus comes and then we're this and that and cortisol and we get, which actually inflames things and makes things worse for quite a long time. Whereas with the cavemen, they would run or whatever, and then they'd get out of the way of that stimulus and they'd relax. In our modern day today, there are so many things that are anxiety provoking, even if on a small level, but things kind of mount up. And you find that people aren't actually fully relaxing. So what I teach people to do is get out of that mind and that overwhelm and those looping thoughts back into the body, because your body is with you now. Your mind goes to the future, to the past. What happens if this happens? What happens if he said this, she said, all of the, what I call itty bitty, that itty bitty committee that we kind of get stuck in because we've got minds that think.
Exactly.
So it's kind of, I almost think that our evolution has kind of given us a bit of a problem that we need then to get round. So I teach people to learn to actually stop that. We pattern interrupt those thoughts, we get back into our body and we give our body a break if it needs. And the most effective way to do that is actually to do some nervous system regulation with some vagus nerve stimulation or breathing. Breathing is brilliant. Breathing properly, I would say, because most of us breathe from here. Actually doing deep diaphragmatic breathing, which will stretch your vagus nerve. Because most of us have vagus nerves that are not toned. And the vagus nerve is really one of the keys, because if we can learn to use that vagus nerve, the points that we have on our bodies, the ear points or whatever, then we can actually get that vagus nerve to cut out that sympathetic response.
Yeah, nice.
And that just calms us and it puts us back into rest and recuperation, which is where we need to be to actually, for our brain to do its housekeeping for a start. Because the brain has, all of these hormones and bits going round. And what we have to do is let it rest.
Right.
And we can't do that if we're in this anxiety state all the time.
No, I agree. I think a lot of people could use that even outside of the clients that you work with. So now, why did you decide to build your Quit Anxiety, Gain Peace program around that nervous system regulation first? What was that the first thing?
Because people need to understand that and people need to build that resilience. So what we do is we start with breathing and gratitude. Breathing, because again, it will regulate the nervous system, and gratitude, because gratitude is a pattern interrupter. There are lots of physiological things that gratitude does. And also, if you're depressed, you can't feel love. There are a lot of emotions you can't feel, but you could be grateful for the bed that you can't get out of. And taking some time just to have a gratitude practice where you actually physically write things, because then it gets processed, not typing. Physically write things, and then you feel that gratitude. You bring that as an emotion because you can manufacture gratitude. And that actually effectively cuts out all this toing and froing. So again, it gives you a break. What we try to do is give the brain a break, and we learn more and more things. We layer what we're doing. So we start with small practices of breathing and gratitude, and then we move to the vagal things. And on a weekly basis, people will be practicing this only for 5-10 minutes a day. twice a day. So it's not a big thing, but I have to build it up over time because you have to build habits.
Absolutely.
So that's what we start doing. Then we learn to tap the EFT, which again, we can bring emotions through our body. It takes 90 seconds for an emotion to come up, be processed, and go. And that's quite an important thing to know. And then after that, I go into RTT for people because once they've learned those things, they've done them for 3 weeks, they're starting to kind of find themselves again. And I work with a lot of women who, widows actually, who have lost their husbands, but their husbands were quite controlling. So they find in sort of midlife or later life that they're not actually sure who they are anymore. And this course will help them. Yeah, this course will actually help them find that confidence and come back to who they are and realize that, they haven't been setting boundaries or whatever. So we do the Rapid Transformational Therapy on the 4th week of the course. It's an 8-week course. We do the intake where we talk about what the problem is, and I do a little bit of going back through their life, how it's affecting them at the moment, what that problem is doing for them, a little bit about childhood, so I know roughly what went on in their childhood. Odd things can come up sometimes under hypnosis, of course, as you know. And then I talk about how would life be without the problem. So they go into a little sort of meditation. They think about how it would be, and I just jot some notes down because I will use that for the transformation recording that I will do. So the 5th week is actually the Rapid Transformational Therapy, and that's anything really from 60 minutes to 2 hours. And we go back to the root cause. That's what the RTT is about. It's about going back to the root cause, because if you think about it, I always like to think of the consciousness as that iceberg image where you've 5% in your consciousness and then 95% is under that water.
Yes.
And what RTT does is it goes back to the subconscious and we get access to that during hypnotherapy. And then we can find out, we go back, the brain will go back to different scenes where the root cause comes up, and then we will come up with what the root cause was. The clients come up with that during the hypnotherapy, and then we look at that, we reframe it, and it's like them kind of understanding that how's that helping you now? It's like that Dr. Phil thing. Yes, this behavior doing to you now, and they're always not helping me. This is just making me, procrastinate or whatever. So we look at that, and we have a little routine of different practices where we come up with, this isn't me anymore because I'm 50 now, not 10 or whatever. And then we go through a reframe, which is the last time we talk about all of the negative beliefs. And then I record a 10 or 15-minute transformation, which is what I do is I switch all the negatives into positives and I incorporate the things they really want in their life. And then they go away with that transformational recording, just the voice recording, and they need to listen to that for 21 days. So that's when the rest of the course comes in, which is more things like practical things like sleep, diet, getting back into nature, because nature is a huge thing for anxiety. Just being amongst trees, to all of those things where we are designed to be, because we're not designed to be in houses with lights and all of this sort of thing. And then we talk in the 7th week, we talk about meditation and mindfulness. And I only talk about that when we've done the nervous system regulating tool. So that because a lot of people say, I can't meditate, I can't sit for that long, because they've not got their nervous system into a place where that's possible. So, and then the 8th week is where we sort of wrap up, and they find their own roadmap. So every week I give them a tracker document, and they choose different exercises. They get sheets with lots of different exercises for each section, because everyone's different. So they choose 2 or 3 exercises that they really resonate with. And then at the end, they come out with their kind of playlist of things that helped them, which they can go on with. And I do also do a kind of continuation where I still I support them for sort of 10 minutes twice a month or 20 minutes a month. And we just go through so that they are in that healing container still with me. If they keep,
Is this a group program that you're doing, or is it an individual program, or both?
I'm doing both. My next group program will start on the 17th of February.
Okay. Got some
So
time to get in, so make sure if you're interested in this, connect with Catherine as soon as possible so it doesn't fill up and you miss out on that spot. Because that is important. I know how fast they can fill up when you're actually looking to start a new session. And I think at this time of the year, especially, I mean, we're in January 26 right now. Yeah, it definitely brings up a lot of other anxieties and behaviors from people having worked with the holidays and trying to figure out what the new year is going to hold. It's a very stressful time for a lot of people. So I appreciate the timing of what you're offering there. So now, how do you help your clients, especially the midlife women, move from that chronic anxiety to that lasting peace and maybe even joy? So is there another stage in this from what you're doing to continue the work with the clients? Like you said, you'll do some
yeah,
small sessions, that kind of thing?
yeah, I do some more breathing with them, and we work on things like one of my most recent clients. She couldn't drive on motorways because she was too timid or whatever. And halfway through the course, she came on and she said, "Oh, Catherine," she said, "I went on a motorway yesterday. I went on it by mistake because I missed the turning, but I was okay. I just did those breathing and I was okay, and I was and it worked." And I find people start changing about halfway through. And then once we've done the RTT, there's very often quite a big change because people, what we're doing is we're rewiring their brains towards what they prefer, what they really want. And they start realizing that they've been settling, they've been settling for things that they actually don't want. And this particular client, she sort of told her son something, and he said, "But Mum, you've never done that." And she was like, "No, but I actually want to do that now. This is what I want to do," because she was having panic attacks before, we worked together. And she did have one. She went away for 2 weeks during the course. So we did it either side. And she phoned me because she was having a panic attack. So we talked about what she could do to just calm. So she went to calm, and then she was better. And it didn't actually last that long. And I think with panic attacks, the main thing is understanding it isn't a heart attack. You will get better because you learn to recognize what those symptoms are. And also, she had an inhaler for asthma because she got short of breath. When we've done the breathing session, she doesn't use her inhaler anymore.
Beautiful.
Which is quite amazing, really amazing, because a lot of people, when they get older, they start kind of, they get anxious and they start contracting their world. They stop going out with people because they maybe get social anxiety or whatever, or they've always been out with their husband and all of a sudden it's just them and they might live alone. I mean, a lot of people living alone these days, certainly in this country. And things can be quite daunting, especially as we live in such a technological world now. But basically I kind of help people. Most of my work is very focused on that person, and I do a human design reading at the beginning, so I have a good idea of who I'm coaching, which is really important, actually. So a lot of the individual work I will do is on actually looking to see what is helping them. So if I'm on a Zoom with someone, I'm a projector, so I will kind of, once I'm in a container with them, I will look and see what the most beneficial thing would be for them. So it's quite tailored work. So even if I'm doing group coaching, when I'm doing the 2 individual sessions for the RTT, I will do some time with them and I, so that we just get to the real whatever, because everyone is different. Everyone has slightly different ways of understanding of what they want or whatever. So even within the group work, there is individual work, and they get access to me so that if they have a problem, they can call me during the course, or they can WhatsApp or whatever route they've chosen, but I am available to people.
Nice.
In case of, gosh, I don't know what to do, whatever. So
Stuff can be that anxiety or those emotions that pop up that they're needing that immediate response for.
exactly. Sometimes people just need reassurance.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's just they're recognizing that in themselves and are like, what do I need to do? Because I've tried this and this, but now I really need to talk to Catherine about that because they're looking for that solution because you've helped them so much already.
Yeah.
And they're looking for that, okay, I know something's not right and what am I missing? How can we?
And that's a big thing. I know something's not right. But we learn what isn't right, and we learn during the course. I teach them to spot things. And if they start spotting something, then we do X or we do Y or whatever. Again, it's individual really for people.
Yeah. Absolutely. It would be what you're doing. Beautiful. So now I'm wondering whether you would honor us and guide us through one or two little gentle tools or shifts that our listeners can try if they're feeling stuck in anxiety or overwhelm today.
Okay, yeah. So I think the first thing to start with is we might want to do a little bit of breathing. And to do this, we need to breathe with our diaphragm. So we need to be sitting up straight like we were, or you can do it lying down as well, but as long as your back is straight. So people can imagine that there's a string pulling you up. And then what you do is you breathe in through your nose. Breathing in through your nose is very important because it oxygenates the air better. There are, in the sinuses, there's nitric oxide, which actually helps kill bugs and things so that your nasal passages don't get, you don't get so many colds and stuff like that. So breathing in through our nose is very important. We can either breathe out through our mouth or through our nose, depending. So for doing a deep diaphragmatic breath, then we sit upright and then we breathe in through our nose and we put our hands on our belly and we breathe first into our belly. So our belly expands when we breathe in. Okay. And then when we breathe out, the belly goes down. Try and keep our shoulders down because most people kind of will breathe like this using our muscles, but it's important too. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to do some breathing where we count on the in and then we double that count on the out. Okay. So that immediately brings your body back into better balance.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So let's do it. Okay. So I will count people in. Okay. So are you ready? Okay. So in 1, 2, 3, 4, out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In 2, 3, 4, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then just gently come back to normal breathing. How do you feel?
It feels great. I always have really enjoyed the breath work because it really regulates you so fast.
Yes.
You can take yourself in any moment. Yeah, you can take yourself in any moment and just
it's free. You don't have to pay. You've got your breath with you all the time. It's just a case of getting that under control and being able to actually do that. I mean, I use that particular one. My husband drives quite fast, and when we're going through the small road from
when you're driving, it's perfect.
Yes. When he's doing that, I'm, doing that breathing. And it just means that it happens and I'm just calm. And it doesn't take terribly long either because your body wants you to be able to be calm because it's a more natural state than being like, ready to be in a state.
And my shoulders dropping as well.
Yeah, exactly. Your shoulders relax. Yeah, yeah. And that is very simple. You can do it anywhere. If you have trouble with the 8, try 4, 6.
Okay.
And it might be that that's better for you. That will still give you that relaxation because you've got the exhale longer than the inhale. One of the best breaths for if you are having trouble sleeping is to do a box breath. Can I demonstrate that?
Absolutely.
So basically, that is breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4.
Mm.
And it's called box breath because you go in, hold, out, hold, in, hold, out, hold. And that is quite good for just 4 each side. So you do the whole everything for 4. So that's quite easy to do. You can also do ladder breathing when you go in for 4 and hold for 7 and out for 8.
Okay.
Which is quite good as well. So there are all sorts of different ways of doing that. And I think really that starting with the breathing is really the way ahead for most people, because when you're doing that breathing, it does stretch the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve innervates the diaphragm, which is the muscle between the chest and the abdomen. So you're hitting something twice. You're doing vagal activation plus the breathing. That's why it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Actually. And a quick vagal nerve. Can I show them something in the vagal nerve? So I don't know if you can see my ears actually, but where you have your earlobe and you have that part above it, that cartilagey
Yeah.
part. If you hold the earlobe and the cartilagey part and you just massage there, the vagus nerve comes to the surface on the ear. And just sitting, quietly breathing, doing that will again just bring your system down. So
Simple
those
little
things,
tricks that we just don't understand the effects that it can have on us. But so,
well, yeah, I mean, the vagus nerve is relatively, because when I was at medical school, it was just a cranial nerve. And okay, it's called vagus because vago vagari is wander in Latin, because it wanders all over the body. The other cranial nerves don't really go in the body, but the vagus nerve comes out through the brainstem, goes down through the voice box, which is why gargling is a brilliant way to tone the vagal nerve, because you're actually vibrating the larynx when you do that. And you can hum. I mean, a lot of people won't. One of my latest clients loves gargling, but most people don't like doing it. But even humming is good for the vagal nerve activation as well. Humming or singing, because you're vibrating. And don't forget, your vibration is your frequency.
yes.
And I'm doing some very interesting things about voice codes at the moment and frequencies and Tesla. And there's just so much happening, that I'm going to be incorporating into later versions of Quit Anxiety Game Peace. So yeah.
So one quick question before we go into our posing reflections is, do you work with people that aren't experiencing that anxiety or depression and things along that line, or are you open to working with anybody, or is there a certain clientele that you're?
No, I mean, I work with anyone that I resonate with. It's important for me to resonate with them. And because obviously, well, I'm a projector, so I need to be invited by someone to work with me. So I usually would have a discovery call. And my discovery calls, by the way, are 30 minutes. They are completely free, no obligation. So if you are thinking of working or this kind of work, then having one of those, I will always teach at least 2 things that are particular to you. So with the person I've got on the other side of the Zoom, if you like, we have a conversation. I work on what is best for you at that time. So if you can work with me or not, that's whatever. But basically, you will learn something if you have a discovery call with me. That will help you, because I just I want to make this kind of work available to more people.
Absolutely. So now, one last question before I thought I had finished my question, but I got one more because I really want to know this. So when you're working with your clients, especially those women in midlife, because that's the market that I work with as well. There's so many pieces that are changing in their life at this stage. Like you said, they might be going through a divorce, they might be going through separation, they might be going through a death, they might be transitioning in their careers, they might have been, aged out of the career, as much like a lot of the women that I've worked with. And moving them from that chronic anxiety to lasting peace and maybe even joy. what are some of the things, is there anything additional than what we've already talked about that you would work with your clients on in that perspective?
Yeah, I would always do a human design reading at the
Mhm.
beginning for them, because looking at someone's human design shows me whether they are kind of working with their design or whether they're pushing against it. Because if they're pushing against their design, then it's much more troublesome. But
Mm.
looking at their design, I can help them. For instance, 50% of people have an open solar plexus center, which means they will be taking in and amplifying other people's emotions.
Yeah.
So they'll be taking on emotions that aren't theirs.
Mhm.
And I can help them stop doing that and regulate that side of things. But I only know that if I know what their human design is.
Mhm.
Likewise, if people have got a lot of kind of negative stuff going on and thoughts, sometimes they might have an open ajna,
Mhm.
um, and I can again help to get them to understand that human design, that is maybe a natural but unbalanced expression of having that open ajna. So we look at deconditioning that. And also it's helpful for coaching because 70% of people actually need closed questions, yes, no questions. And I don't know that unless I know, that what their human design is. So in a way, my coaching is tailored around how they are particularly. And again, of course, everyone is different. Everyone's human design is different. And, they might have an open spleen. They might be holding on to things for longer than is good for them. And we can deal with those things. So certainly for people in midlife who maybe haven't come across human design because it is relatively recent.
Mhm.
Um, and it's not a kind of mainline thing, really, but that can really help people understand the way they're designed, the way their energy is designed to flow.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's very important. And
Mhm.
and when people when you explain everything to people, they're kind of, oh, I wondered why I was feeling that, or
Yes.
and it's because of this aspect in your design. And I
Mhm.
think that gives them a kind of framework and also gives them permission to be who they are.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's important when you're in midlife because it is a time of change.
Definitely is.
There is so much going on, and particularly in this world, there's so much that's anxiety provoking. Everything's changing. The world of work has changed beyond recognition. We've now got AI coming in. um, you know, and I think if you can kind of hold on to who you are at your, you know, you, then if you can live according to your strategy and authority, then you're going to be living in a kind of very aligned way. And I think that
Mhm.
alignment is what would really help people.
Yeah, absolutely. I've recently, in the last few years, got explored all of the human design, and it's very interesting when you actually delve into it to recognize, oh yeah, that's exactly how and this is what I can do. So it's a beautiful, beautiful tool to be able to use for anybody that's out there.
Absolutely. And it's, you teach people a few things. You teach them about their energy, you teach them about the centers, about their profile, and it gives people that sort of, oh yes, I can be me. That is who I am.
Exactly.
And as you say, and it's actually very beautiful looking at a human design chart. They say that when you look at your human design chart, you get a kind of influx of energy.
Mhm.
So, which is again interesting.
Yes, I do. And I think the more I look at it, because I go back and forth with it quite often,
Mhm.
and the more I study it, and the more it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer for me on who I am and who I be, and where my strengths are, where my opportunities are, as far as I'm perfectly fine because this is how I manage myself and my business, etc. Whereas somebody else's is going to be completely different, and it's nice to know that our designs really are a reflection of who we truly are, and
Yeah.
we don't have to be changing to be like somebody.
No, exactly. It's acceptance. And if you can see who you are and then it's like coming home to something.
Mm,
It's like, this is for me. Oh, this is how I really am. And people relax
mm,
into that.
yes,
And
I
that's
do.
another thing that can help with anxiety
Mm.
because you
Oh, for
realize
sure.
it's okay to be you.
Yeah. And that's how you were designed to begin with.
Yeah.
We're also unique. So now, Catherine, I know that you had something as a gift for our viewers today. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And we'll put the link in the show notes, of course.
Yes, yes. It's a short meditation and it's called a safe place to pause.
Oh.
And what it does is it combines some breathing with a sensory kind of thing. So it's breathing, but also using your senses while you're doing that breathing. So you're regulating your nervous system and you're using your senses, which will ground you into your body.
Yeah.
It's just over 8 minutes long, so it's not a heavy thing or anything. And it's just me guiding people through that with the breathing
Beautiful.
so that they can take that pause. Because, very often you're doing something and then you think, well, I'll just do another thing and I'll just do another thing. And you don't take those breaks. It's just a way to take a stop. Yeah, just go and do that. And then, it's like kind of being renewed, I think, after you've just gone through that, you've been relaxing. And you can do it in a chair or you can lie on a bed or lie on the floor or whatever. But it's just a little something that, I hope will give people a little bit of an experience because that's what it's about.
Well, I think whenever you do that, you're just giving yourself that time to pause and to
Yeah.
be centered.
Because we don't, do we? We push ourselves. And I always say, you know, we should treat ourselves like our own best friend, because if you
Mhm.
had a friend, you wouldn't talk to them like you talk to yourself.
Exactly.
So it
Never,
never, no.
never, never. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, I will put all of the links to find Catherine in our show notes. But her name, I believe, is wait, her Facebook has two different ones. Her name and then
Yeah.
Move Beyond Bipolar
Mm.
is where her website is and things like that. But we'll put that all up for you. Please make sure you share this with your friends. And if you've really enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, because this is why we're wanting to do these, is to bring beautiful guests like Catherine in that can share opportunities for all of us in midlife and for probably people that are not in midlife yet. Because this is definitely something that we all are going to experience as we move forward. And even your story of getting cancer in midlife and all of these things are stories that we need to know or normalize our stories. And we know we're not alone. So please make sure that you follow Catherine, and we'll look forward to seeing you again really soon on Limitless in Midlife. Have a great day.